Coach Helton's got to be thrilled that Graham Harrell is not going anywhere. And can you just confirm that for me, Mr. Helton, Coach Helton?
Yeah, that might be our best recruit today is to have Graham right here with us. No, but we're really excited with Graham being back with us. Has done such a tremendous job with our offense and loves the kids that are around him. And it's exciting. It's an exciting future, both with the coaches that we have here as well as the playmakers.
I think it also, Clay, speaks to the resources and the commitment to this program that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks with Mike Bone and the conversation we had a couple weeks ago when you were with us here on Pac-12 Network. But because it is signing day, and I know that's the focus of today's show, take me through this, because it's not like you guys had a big class. So how do you attack this signing day?
Yeah, it was a big man's class, as you can tell. This is a small class for us because we just haven't had the attrition. We've had 7 seniors, literally 4 starters, 2 on offense, 2 on defense, that'll be leaving us. So, with limited number of scholarships, we really needed to focus on our offense and defensive line, especially big men. And so you saw the availability of garnering 6 monsters on the front line offensively, and then, 2 great interior players, as well as an edge player on the defensive line. We added an unbelievable skill player in Josh Jackson and a specialist in Parker Lewis. But today was about establishing the offensive line and defensive line, something that as we look to the future that we really needed. And on the West Coast, it was just an unbelievable year. And that doesn't happen all the time. And we were able to get the guys that we needed for our future.
Coach, how do you balance out the needs for the roster, but maybe the wants to make a position group even deeper that you already have players at?
Yeah, as we looked at it, this is a very, very young team. It's a freshman and sophomore team. And when we looked at it, when you look at this offensive line that has an Austin Jackson, an Elijah Vera Tucker, a Jalen McKenzie, a Brett Nealon, Andrew Voorhees coming back, Leon Jimmins, they're going to be older kids going into next year. And we really needed to do what we did 3 years ago. We signed, that whole group came in together, and we needed to sign another group that would come in, be able to grow, learn together, and keep that production going on the offensive line. And then you look on the defensive line, you talk about a Jay Tufeli, a Brandon Peely, a Marlon Tuipulotu. Those guys are now going into their 4th year, and the availability to go ahead and get a Kobe Pepe, a Jamar Sakona, get another edge, a great edge player in Tuipulotu. It was a really big day for us. Big men win championships, and we needed to do that. And then you look on the outside, I can't say enough about Josh Jackson. I've been such a huge fan of his for so long. And he just reminds me so much of Robert Woods. I've said that for a long time. And just the way he handled recruiting, how professional he was. He's our type of kid. And for him to be able to come in here, he's going to be a kid that I think can compete right off the bat with his physical maturity and mental maturity. It was a very good day for us.
Coach, it's funny you mentioned one of those wide receivers. It's interesting comp that Yogi, I'm looking at some of his notes, and he mentioned Robert Woods as well. We were having this conversation last night about your class. It's so hard, I would imagine, to go and get some skill players, just knowing the amount of guys that are still on this roster. In Josh's case in particular, can you just take me into that living room? What are those conversations like when you look at the other guys that essentially were big-time performers in this offense that aren't going anywhere?
Yeah, the one thing that I think kids around the country see when they're talking about SC is you have the availability to compete at a young age, and you have the availability to get on the field. Best man is going to play here. And our kids understand that, both on our team as well as the recruits that are coming in. I mean, just take last year's group. Think of Drake Jackson coming in and winning a position, being an all-conference player and a freshman All-American. Look at Keaton Slovis, who comes in and does a tremendous job for us. Drake London, who stepped on the field and did an amazing job for us at the receiver position. So kids understand when they come here, they're going to get the opportunity to learn the system quickly, be able to compete, and if they're the best man, they're walking out on Saturday and doing a job.
Coach, you've been around SC obviously for a long time. How do you feel recruiting has shifted over the course of the last decade? Social media, of course, is a huge part of it, but for somebody that's done every role of recruiting and now as the head coach, curious your take.
Yeah, one of the things that you see is just how much talent is on the West Coast, and you don't have to go very far off. You can select a couple kids that are national kids, but there's so much talent on the West Coast, and we've been able to garner that talent. I remember doing the study of just looking from Fresno to Southern California on average. There's 123 Power 5 players that are signed on average a year just in Southern California. Now you take the growth of states like Utah, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, Nevada. It's just become a tremendous hotbed for us. And something, as you look over the last 5 years, we've really stayed close to home. We were very fortunate. We got two monsters out of Texas, two O-linemen out of Texas that are huge people that are going to be great additions to us, and we'll continue to do those national recruits. But right now, looking at where especially big men were there this year, we stayed pretty close to home.
Coach, speaking of, I want to ask you about a guy that was one of the top O-linemen on my overall big board in this conference, Jonah Monheim. Where do you project him out, and do you think he's got the tools to be able to compete early among an offensive line that, as you referenced, has some depth?
Yeah, I can't wait to watch all 6 men that we've signed come in here and compete. Jonah is one of those guys that just showed, again, physical maturity, mental maturity, and a guy that we think can pick up the system extremely fast, has all the tools not only to play at this level, but beyond. Excited to have him and his family. There's another young man, and as well as all this crew. When you look at these 11 men that were with us the whole way, all the way through the season, all the way through signing day, were strong with us and signed with us today, and we're excited about all of them.
Clay, before we let you get going, can you just explain to me what it's like in your guys' offices right now, just knowing, hey, it's signing day, it's the class that you have, but you still got to turn the page. I'm sure they're still recruiting because of the transfer portal of your own guys, still having conversations with other players as well, but there's also a bowl game. Like, I would imagine it's a little bit of chaotic, a sense of chaos right now down there.
Yeah, there's a lot of balls being juggled right now, no question. One, it is early signing period. There's still another signing period to go in February that you're having to orchestrate. You're looking at your own personnel and who's going to be there. Obviously, being at SC, we always have young men that have that opportunity after their third year, their junior year, to look at the NFL and see if it's their best decision. Having those discussions. You have the discussions of the graduate transfers that could come about. We've been fortunate to be able not to have a lot of transition in that area, but it's something that continues to flow, not only through the month of December, but January. By that first Wednesday in February, you kind of know what your team is going to be. But there's a lot of work to do from this point till that signing date in February.
Yeah, speaking of that, in recruiting, a lot of guys sign today or the next couple days, next 48 hours to sign. Yeah. But guys have signed and then they'll announce at bowl games. What's your thoughts around that? Because I would imagine that you may be in that situation where a couple kids who have signed with you, but you can't talk about.
Yeah, there's a couple situations that end up happening. Usually when you look at this early signing period, anywhere from 85 to 89% of the players that are out there are signing today. And then there's that top 10% that are still left out there that you're continuing to recruit. And then, each man has his own process, and we respect that process as recruiters and as universities. Their availability, you only get to go through the recruiting process once. We want to make it a memory for them. So you do have these all-star games and bowl games that kids do want to announce at. There are kids that are still trying to figure out what they want to do to make sure that they understand exactly what the situation is, not only at your university, but all universities across the country. And so there are young men, probably about 10% that are left out there that are still looking at decisions. And then there's some men that are going to announce and make a whole world happy at some of these all-star games. It's just all part of it.
Yeah, the fanfare and the hoopla. Yogi was telling me he'd do this like extravagant video if he had to go back and talk about heading and committing to a place like USC. Coach, wish you nothing but the best moving forward. Take care of business in the bowl game and continue to grind, because it was awesome seeing the fight from your football squad, especially on some of those road games down the stretch this season.
Thank you, guys. Fight on.
Yeah.